AITA for destroying my adopted brother who slept with my fiancée before our wedding? I am 32 years old, and he is 30. My brother, Ethan, works at a prestigious investment firm, drives a high-end electric car, and lives in a downtown penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows. I often wondered if he was trying to prove something, as if being adopted meant he had to constantly outdo me to feel secure in his place. Perhaps he believed that by being the perfect son, he could erase the fact that he was not their biological child. And if that was his goal, he had certainly achieved it. On my end, I worked my tail off to become a firefighter. I was promoted to lieutenant last year, the youngest in my district. I love my job. I literally save lives. But for my parents, it never seemed to measure up to his Wall Street career. I do not make enough to surprise them with trips to Europe like Mr. Perfect does. Then I met Chloe. She was brilliant, beautiful, funny, and most importantly, she was the first person who saw me for who I was. Not just as Ethan's brother, but as Caleb. She is a graphic designer with a stunning, yet elegant, geometric tattoo sleeve. We dated for 3 years, and when I asked her to marry me, she said yes without hesitation. And that is when everything started to fall apart. My parents, of course, insisted that Ethan help us plan the wedding. He has the right connections, Caleb. He knows the right people. Chloe thought it was a fantastic idea too. Who would pass up a luxury wedding at a fraction of the cost? So, Ethan volunteered to manage the hotel reservations for our guests. You have enough on your plate with all the planning, bro. Let me handle this, he told me, showing me screenshots of the confirmed bookings on his phone. Always so helpful, always there, like a snake coiled and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. On the night of our rehearsal dinner, everything seemed normal until I realized I had not seen Chloe for about an hour. She sent me a text saying she was feeling overwhelmed and needed to get some fresh air. I brushed it off as pre-wedding jitters, nothing more. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. That is when I noticed Ethan was gone, too. He probably went to get some ice, someone mentioned. Except his car was missing from the parking lot. A heavy feeling settled in my stomach, the same kind of feeling I get when I walk into a room that is far too quiet during an emergency call. I opened Instagram to send Chloe a message and saw she had posted a story that was deleted almost instantly. But in that split second, I saw it. The room number behind her, different from ours. Room 312. Here's the thing. When you live with someone for 3 years, you know their phone passcode. Chloe's had always been the same. Her sister's birthday. I opened her recent messages with Ethan. Many of them were about the wedding, but then they became more personal. Flirting. A message that said, "Can't wait to see you tonight." I went up to the 3rd floor, using the master key card Ethan had given me in case of an emergency. The irony was suffocating. The hallway was silent except for the low hum of a distant ice machine. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the card. The light on the door blinked green. They did not even hear me enter at first. I did not yell. I did not slam the door. I just stood there, watching. My mind raced, trying to figure out my next move. I did the first thing that came to mind. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. Evidence. That is when Ethan finally saw me. The jerk did not even flinch or try to cover himself. He just smirked. "She was never yours to begin with," he said, reaching for his phone. "Want to see the messages? See how long this has been going on. How she comes to see me every time you are working one of your 24-hour shifts." Chloe was sobbing uncontrollably. "Caleb, please, let me explain. It is not what." I let out a slow breath, rolling my shoulders back. That was the moment he sealed his fate. It was not when he took something from me, because looking at Chloe in that moment, she was not even worth the effort. It was not when he had spent years taking what should have been mine, acting as if he was entitled to it all. No, it was right then, in that moment of perceived victory, when he chose to gloat. I smiled, a cold, empty smile that communicated one thing very clearly. You are going to regret every second of your life. Yeah, I replied, taking a step forward. And you have never been able to hold on to anything you take. Then I sent my right fist crashing into his jaw. He stumbled backward, stunned that his usually calm brother had finally snapped. We collided with the hotel desk, sending lamps and the television crashing to the floor. Chloe screamed for us to stop. Ethan managed to land a few hits, but he was no match for a man who carries people out of burning buildings for a living. I slammed him against the bathroom door, splintering the frame. You take everything, I spat, landing another blow to his face. And for what? For her. I let out a dry, humorless laugh, shoving him away from me. You did not steal anything, Ethan. You just took out my trash for me. He was swaying on his feet, finally understanding he was not built to fight a man who had earned everything he had. Hotel security finally arrived and pulled us apart. My knuckles were bleeding. Ethan's eye was already starting to swell shut, and his lip was split open. As they escorted me out, I looked back at Chloe, huddled in the sheets as if they could shield her from the chaos she had helped create. Keep the ring, I said, my voice eerily calm. It is fake anyway. It was not fake, but the look of devastation on her face was well worth the lie. I sat in my pickup truck in the hotel parking lot. I made a call to cancel the reception venue. I also called my shift captain to see if I could pick up some extra shifts the following week, anything to keep my mind busy. After sitting in my truck for an hour, I finally decided to call my parents, just to tell them the wedding was off. Simple and direct. But before I could even finish my sentence, my mother interrupted me. Ethan already called us. How could you, Caleb? How could you attack your brother like that? We raised you better than this. Of course, he had called them first. Classic Ethan, always controlling the narrative. Did he happen to mention he was involved with my fiancée? I yelled into the phone. Not my proudest moment, but I was still seeing red. There was dead silence on the other end of the line. Then my dad spoke. There must be some kind of misunderstanding. Ethan said Chloe came to him because she was having doubts, and he was just comforting her when you stormed in and lost control. Unbelievable. Even now, they were taking his side. The golden child could do no wrong, even when he was caught in a compromising situation with my fiancée. Yeah, he was comforting her, all right. My mother let out a shocked gasp. My dad told me I was being vulgar and irrational and that I should come over tomorrow after I had calmed down. I hung up the phone. I sat there, gripping my phone so hard my fingers ached. My head was buzzing, my heart pounding in my chest, but it was not just anger anymore. I felt like I was free falling into a void, as if my life had just split in two and I had no idea where I was going to land. Chloe was gone. The wedding was canceled. My parents, as usual, were siding with Ethan. And Ethan was probably somewhere feeling smug, believing he had gotten away with it yet again. How long? The question gnawed at me. How long had this been happening? Was it an impulsive act of betrayal, or had I been a joke to them for months, even years? Had he always gone after what was mine? Then, another thought struck me so hard it made my stomach churn. Was Chloe the first? I mentally reviewed all of my serious relationships. An icy chill ran down my spine. Ethan had always been charming, always the center of attention, and I had never given it a second thought until now. I had to know the truth. I scrolled through my contacts, found a number I had not dialed in years, Ethan's ex, Sarah, and hit call. Hello? Who is this? Sarah. It is Caleb. A pause. Why are you calling me? She asked, straight to the point. I need to ask you something about Ethan. Sarah sighed, clearly annoyed. No, I really do not think you do. It is important, I insisted, my throat feeling dry. I need to know, when you two were together, was he ever unfaithful to you? That earned a short, dry laugh completely devoid of humor. You call me after 2 years just to ask if Ethan was faithful? I do not know what kind of situation you are in, but I want no part of it. I am done with him. Yes, it does concern you. My voice came out sharper than I intended, but I did not care. He was with Chloe. Silence. When Sarah finally spoke, her voice was sharp. That is terrible, but it is not my problem. You were with him for 3 years, I pressed. And you ended things so abruptly, without any explanation. Was it because of something like this? Sarah exhaled sharply, as if swallowing something bitter. Caleb, I do not owe you anything. You should have figured out what kind of person your brother is before he ruined your life. Not after. I am just trying to understand, I said. I need to know if it was always him. A long silence followed. Then, just move on. And she hung up. I stood there, staring at my phone screen. A wave of anger washed over me. She knew something. I could feel it, but she was not willing to talk. Fine. I did not need her. I still had a job to do. I shoved my phone into my pocket, turned the ignition, and pulled out of the parking lot. I had decided to go straight to my parents' house the next morning to show them exactly what their precious son had done. The next morning, Just as I was about to leave, my phone rang. It was Sarah. I answered, bracing for another rejection, but her voice was different this time. Caleb, I am sorry about yesterday. I did not know. I did not say anything. I just waited. She took a deep breath. There is something you need to know about Ethan. Can we meet? We met at a 24-hour diner I sometimes visit after a tough shift. When I arrived, Sarah looked different than I remembered. She seemed more confident, but there was a hint of nervousness about her. I was not going to say anything, she began, fiddling with her coffee mug. But after what he did to you with Chloe, you have a right to know. She pulled out her phone and showed me pictures of a little boy, maybe 18 months old. He was an adorable kid with curly hair and big eyes. This is Leo, your nephew. I stared at the photo, not quite understanding at first. Then it hit me like a ladder falling off a fire truck. Ethan has a son? Why would he hide that? Sarah let out a humorless laugh. Because he wanted nothing to do with him. When I told him I was pregnant, he said it would ruin his image and offered to pay for a procedure. When I refused, he had me sign a non-disclosure agreement in exchange for child support. I get a wire transfer every month. On the condition that I never tell anyone he is the father, especially not your parents. I looked at the pictures more closely. The kid had the exact same dimple on his right cheek as Ethan. I will be damned. And that is not all, Sarah continued, scrolling through her phone. She showed me screenshots of conversations, emails where he talked about other women while they were together, including some from Chloe dating back 6 months. 6 months. Chloe and I were already engaged then. We were touring wedding venues. Why are you showing me all of this now? I asked. Because I am tired of the lies. And because your family deserves to know who he really is. She hesitated. There is something else. Ethan took credit for your work at the firehouse. I blinked. What? How well do you know Mike at your station? The guy with the Extreme Sports podcast. Yeah, Mike. He is always a little too interested in my ideas during our planning meetings. Ethan and Mike play squash together. Mike has been feeding Ethan all of your ideas for new safety protocols, fire prevention initiatives, and community outreach programs. Ethan then presents them to the city council as his own consulting work. That is how he landed that city contract last year. With your shelter improvement plan. My head was spinning. The golden child had built his entire kingdom on a foundation of lies. And now, I had all the evidence I needed to burn it to the ground. What are you going to do? Sarah asked. I smiled. The kind of smile you get when you are about to fight back for the first time in your life. I am going to introduce my parents to their grandson. The next morning, I asked Sarah if she would be willing to come with me to my parents' house. She was hesitant, worried about breaking the NDA with Ethan. But I had a solution. What if I am the one who tells them? You would just be there to confirm the story. She thought about it for a moment, then nodded. That should work. So, that Sunday evening, we showed up at my parents' suburban house, the one with a display case full of Ethan's academic trophies, while my firefighting medals are tucked away in a drawer. When my mother opened the door and saw Sarah, she looked surprised. Sarah, what a surprise. We have not seen you since. It has been a while, I cut in. She is with me, Mom. Can we come in? My dad was in his usual armchair, watching golf. He looked up, frowning when he saw that my knuckles were still bruised. Caleb, if you have come to apologize to your brother, he is not here. I know. That is why I came now. There is something you both need to know. I motioned for Sarah to sit down. I pulled out the first picture of Leo and handed it to my mother. My dad leaned in to get a closer look. What a cute baby, my mother said, looking confused. That is your grandson, I said flatly. Ethan's son. The color drained from their faces. My dad snatched the phone from her, zooming in on the picture as if he could not believe his eyes. That is impossible. Ethan would have told us if he had a child. Sarah spoke up. He made me sign an agreement to keep me from saying anything. He pays me child support on the condition that I keep it a secret. I swiped to the next photo. It was Leo at the park. The family dimple was clearly visible. Oh my goodness, my mother whispered. He looks just like Ethan did at that age, my dad finished, his voice hollow. I took my phone back and pulled up some of the screenshots Sarah had given me. There is more. Ethan has been unfaithful to every woman he has ever been with, including my fiancée, and it has been going on for at least 6 months. My parents sat in stunned silence as I showed them message after message, complete with dates and times. And, I continued, he stole my work through a colleague on my crew, presenting my ideas as his own to city officials. My dad shook his head. No, there has to be an explanation. Just then, the front door opened, and Ethan walked in. Perfect timing. He froze when he saw all of us in the living room. His eyes locked on Sarah, then on the phone in my hand. One side of his face was a deep shade of purple where I had hit him. What the hell is she doing here? He grumbled. My mother stood up, her eyes filled with tears. Is it true? Do you have a son? Ethan's face cycled through 5 different expressions in 2 seconds before settling into a cold, calculating mask. Sarah is not stable. That kid could belong to anyone. Stop lying. Sarah cut in, her voice firm. I have the DNA test results in my bag. Leo is your son, and these people are his grandparents. My dad stood up next, looking older than I had ever seen him. All these years, we trusted you, we supported you. We always try to make you feel like a real part of this family. And this is how you repay us? By lying, by hurting your own brother. Ethan laughed, that condescending laugh I had heard a million times. Oh, please. Poor Caleb, always the victim. You want to know why Chloe came to me? Because she was bored. Because I have. He never finished his sentence because my dad did something I had never seen him do in my 32 years. He slapped Ethan across the face. Get out of my house, he said, his voice trembling. Now, Ethan looked genuinely shocked, bringing a hand to his cheek where the slap had landed right on top of my bruise. Then his eyes narrowed. Fine, but do not expect another dime from me. No more vacations, no more help with the mortgage. You can figure it out on your own. He left, slamming the door behind him. My parents collapsed onto the couch. My mother was openly sobbing now. I am so sorry, Caleb, she kept repeating. We did not know. We never saw it. It was not the triumphant victory I had imagined. It was just sad. After Sarah left, I stayed for a few more hours to talk with them. They had a lot of questions about Leo. When was he born? Does he have any allergies? Does he like dinosaurs or trucks? He is not even 2 years old, so probably both, I guessed. On Monday morning, I spent my time canceling all the remaining wedding arrangements. Pro tip: when you tell vendors that your brother was involved with the bride, they become surprisingly flexible with their refund policies. Most of them gave me back at least 70%, even the venue, which was supposed to be non-refundable. As for the ones who were difficult, let us just say their online review pages will soon be getting some very detailed feedback. Chloe would not stop blowing up my phone. First, it was tearful apologies, then accusations like, "You never made me feel special," and "You work too much." Then it was back to begging for my forgiveness. In her last voicemail, she was crying so hard I could barely understand her, saying she had made a terrible mistake and that Ethan had manipulated her. I did not block her number. I just let the messages pile up, just in case I needed them later. And if I am being honest, there was a small, satisfying part of me that enjoyed watching her spiral. The really interesting developments started on Tuesday. Remember Mike from my firehouse, the one who was feeding information to Ethan? I confronted him during our shift change, laying out everything I knew. The guy turned as white as a ghost. "I did not know he was using you like that," he stammered. "He was just asking casual questions about your schedule, your procedures." He said he was proud of his brother's work. "Save it," I told him. "You have 2 options. You can help me take him down properly, or I can go see the chief today, and we can have a talk about your naps during night shifts and all those unreported shift swaps." Mike wisely chose the first option. With his help, I compiled a mountain of evidence showing all the times Ethan had used his connections to get special treatment, including the consulting work he did for the fire marshal's office, where he had literally taken my suggestions for safety improvements and presented them as his own to city officials. I sent everything directly to the ethics committee at Ethan's firm, complete with dates that proved my ideas predated his so-called innovations by several months. I also added a little note explaining that he was billing the city for expert consultations on fire safety protocols that had been developed by an actual firefighter. But I did not stop there. Remember how Ethan had insisted on handling the hotel reservations for the wedding? It turns out, he had put everything on his corporate card. The luxury suites, the champagne, all of it was expensed as client entertainment. It was the perfect cherry on top of the corporate fraud sundae he had served himself with the intellectual property theft. On Wednesday morning, Sarah called me. She was crying, but this time, they were tears of joy. "They called me," she said. "Ethan's parents. They want to meet Leo. Actually, it was my mother who could not wait. She had asked me for Sarah's number and had called her first thing Monday morning. They had set up a meeting at a park for Thursday. I do not think Ethan knows, Sarah added. He has not canceled the child support transfer yet. He will soon, I replied. Sure enough, on Wednesday afternoon, my phone was inundated with messages from Ethan. What the hell did you do? My boss just called me into an emergency meeting. You snake. I did not reply. I just let him stew. On Thursday morning, I was on shift when the TV at the station caught my eye. The local news was showing a live shot of Ethan's investment firm. The ticker at the bottom of the screen read, "Local banker suspended amid ethics investigation." My captain saw me staring at the screen and clapped a hand on my shoulder. Is not that your brother's firm? Yeah, I said, trying to keep the smile off my face. The world is full of people looking for an easy way out. He squinted at me. You look way too happy. Does this have anything to do with your wedding being called off? I just shrugged. The captain is a smart man. He put 2 and 2 together and burst out laughing. Remind me to never get on your bad side, Lieutenant. That afternoon, Chloe showed up unannounced at the firehouse. She looked terrible, with puffy eyes and messy hair, the whole pity me act, probably rehearsed in front of a mirror. 2 minutes, she begged. Please, Caleb, I made a horrible mistake. I did not say a word. I just walked toward my truck. If she wanted to talk, it was going to be away from the prying eyes of my crew. She followed me, desperate. I do not know what I was thinking, she began. Ethan was always so thoughtful, always there for me when you were working your 24-hour shifts. 48 hours, I cut her off. If you are going to blame my job for your choices, at least get the schedule right. She winced but pressed on. That is not what I meant. I got caught up in the attention. He made me feel special, but it was not real. What we had, that was real. Too late, I said flatly. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. She was crying now, her hands shaking like something out of a dramatic movie. I will do anything. We can postpone the wedding, go to couples therapy. My phone buzzed with a news alert. I glanced at it and smiled before showing her the screen. Banker fired for ethics violations and corporate fraud. The blood drained from her face. Is that Ethan? Yep. Looks like his career is over. No more penthouse, no more fancy car. I hope it was worth it. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. But he told me it was just a misunderstanding, that people were jealous of his success. I burst out laughing. You actually believe that? The guy who lied about having a child, the one who was involved with his own brother's fiancée. You really thought he was being honest with you? Her eyes went wide with confusion. Wait, what? I laughed again. You did not know? Her breath hitched. Ethan has a kid. I pulled out my phone again, found the picture Sarah had sent me, and showed it to her. A little boy with curly hair, smiling at the camera. This is Leo, your ex-fiancé's nephew. She stared at the screen, her face a canvas of conflicting emotions. He told me he never lied to me. Her phone rang. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. She hesitated, then declined the call, her hands trembling. What am I supposed to do now? I sighed, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. Not my problem. I pulled open the door to my pickup and climbed inside. But if I were you, I added, giving her one last look, I would be careful. A guy who has lost everything has nothing left to lose. I did not wait for a response. I just started the engine and left her standing there in the parking lot, completely devastated. I did not care. It was not my story anymore. Heading back inside the station, I ran into Jenna, one of the paramedics I have known for years. She had a way of making even the worst days feel manageable, as if she carried a weight of her own that was invisible to everyone else. You okay? She asked, glancing out at Chloe, who was still standing outside, frozen like a tragic heroine in a movie. I sighed. Yeah, just taking out the last piece of trash from my life. She burst out laughing. About time. Then, after a pause, she added, So, are you ever going to let me buy you that drink, or are you going to stay on this lone wolf? I do not trust anyone kick? I blinked. I had not even thought about dating again. But the way she said it, so casual and without any pressure, felt different. Give me a few weeks, I replied, half joking. She smirked. You have got 1 week. And with that, she walked away, leaving me standing there, suddenly wondering if maybe, just maybe, moving on was not as complicated as I had thought. As it turned out, Ethan's troubles were only just beginning. Remember how his firm fired him for ethics violations and fraud? Well, that was just the appetizer. The ethics committee did not just fire him. They reported him to the financial regulators. His broker's license is now under review, which means he is virtually unemployable in his field. The corporate credit card was cut off, and apparently, despite his huge salary, he was living paycheck to paycheck. A mountain of debt, very little in savings. I know all of this because my parents get regular, desperate calls from him, asking for money. They keep me in the loop, which is a new and strange experience. For the first time in my life, I am not the last to know what is going on in my own family. Meanwhile, Chloe has also hit rock bottom. She lost her job at the design firm, not because of any scandal, but because she simply stopped showing up after the wedding was called off. Her roommate, who was supposed to be one of her bridesmaids, contacted me last week. Apparently, Chloe has been crashing on their couch, crying constantly, and refusing to look for a new job. She keeps saying she is going to get you back, the roommate told me. I have told her to move on, but she will not listen. I blocked Chloe's number after that. I have no time for that level of delusion. But the real drama unfolded last night. I was at home, watching a hockey game, when someone started banging on my door around 11 at night. I looked through the peephole and almost stumbled backward. It was Ethan, and he looked absolutely pathetic. He had a fresh black eye, his clothes were rumpled, and when I opened the door, he reeked of cheap beer. A far cry from the sharply dressed investment banker he used to be. "Can I crash here?" he mumbled, trying to push his way inside. I blocked the doorway. "What happened to your eye?" He brought a hand up to it, as if he had forgotten it was there. "Ran into a friend of Chloe's at a bar. The guy sucker punched me. I was there because I got fired yesterday. I was staying at a motel, but my card got declined." The worst part was, he was not even trying to play for sympathy. He genuinely seemed to believe that I would let him stay with me after everything he had done. "Out of the question," I said, starting to close the door. He wedged his foot in the opening. "I am your brother." I let out a cold laugh. "You are not my brother. You are just some kid my parents took in and decided to favor over their own son." His face tightened, but I did not give him a chance to speak. "You want to talk about family? A real brother does not stab you in the back. He does not steal from you. He does not get involved with your fiancée, and he certainly does not build a career on your hard work. You are just a liar, a fraud, and now, you are a bum." He opened his mouth, then closed it, searching for a comeback. Finally, he settled on arrogance. "Seriously, you are still hung up on that? That was weeks ago." He looked annoyed, as if I were being unreasonable for not getting over it. I kicked his foot out of the way with a sharp shove. "Go crash with one of your banker buddies. Or with Chloe." At the mention of her name, his expression changed. "Chloe will not answer my calls. Neither will any of my friends. Mom and Dad hung up on me." I raised my eyebrows. "Wow, it is almost as if your actions have consequences." And then he switched tactics. His voice became soft, almost pleading. "I need help, Caleb. I think I have a substance problem." Good grief, this guy? Always the victim. "You have a lot of problems, Ethan, but none of them are my responsibility. Where am I supposed to go?" "There is a shelter on 8th and Pine. Tell them Lieutenant Reeves sent you." He sneered in disgust. "A shelter? I am not a bum." Could have fooled me. I shot back, slamming the door in his face. He started pounding on the door, screaming that I had ruined his life and that I had always been jealous of him. Classic Ethan, at rock bottom and still convinced it is everyone else's fault. I turned up the volume on the TV and waited for him to tire himself out. My neighbor across the hall, a retired detective, poked her head out at one point. I heard Ethan trying to charm her into letting him use her phone. It was a total failure. Finally, he left, but not without yelling that this was not over. Very original. Truly terrifying. This morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "It is Sarah. Ethan showed up at my place at 3 in the morning, trying to see Leo. I called the cops. They took him in, but told me I should get a restraining order. Can you help me?" That is where I am headed now, to the courthouse, to help her fill out the paperwork. A friend of mine from the academy, who is now a sheriff's deputy, told me he would fast-track the file for me. Meanwhile, my parents are devastated. My dad wants to send him to rehab. My mom is torn between the son she raised and the son she enabled for so long. As for me, I am just trying to protect the innocent people from the wreckage Ethan is leaving in his wake. Ethan has no one left to manipulate. The prodigal son act does not work when there is nothing left to take. And while I am not celebrating his downfall, I am not losing any sleep over it, either. He made his choices. He burned every bridge he ever had. Now he is standing in the ashes, wondering why no one is coming to save him. Actions have consequences, and I am going to make sure he feels every single one of them. There are some lines you just do not cross. Being with your brother's fiancée is at the top of that list. I will not lie, I felt a strange sort of emptiness after reading Sarah's text. But a few minutes later, another message came through. It was from Jenna. Hey, Lieutenant. Your week is up. Still interested in that drink? I smiled as I typed my reply. I think I owe you one. A few seconds passed. A new message appeared. You absolutely do. Friday at 7. Do not be late. For the first time in a long time, I was not thinking about the past. I was not dwelling on the betrayals, the canceled wedding, or the family loyalty that had never truly existed. I was just a guy making plans with someone who saw me for who I really was. And maybe, just maybe, that was the best revenge of all. Comment. Sometimes, life puts us in situations we never thought we would face. It is in those moments that our self-respect is truly tested. Learning to draw firm boundaries is not an act of cruelty, but an act of self-preservation. Ultimately, we are all responsible for the energy we bring into our own lives and the lives of others. Even in the middle of chaos, there is always room for kindness, especially toward ourselves. The real victory is not about seeing someone else fall, but about finding the strength to stand up and walk toward your own peace. Healing is not about forgetting what happened, but about choosing not to let it define your future. You deserve relationships built on honesty and mutual respect. Always choose the path that protects your peace and honors your worth. Take care of yourself out there. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a